All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Helm developer call of April 28th to 2020, I should say. We're going to proceed as usual. Announcements, although it doesn't seem we have any. We'll just remind you that the next milestone, actually, we'll do announcements and then we'll do discussion. We have a few items on discussion, so that's exciting. So let's get started with the announcements. Nothing in the document, but we usually like to remind people that the 3.9 RC1 is on Monday, May 2nd, which is this coming Monday, if I'm not wrong. So if there's stuff that people would like to be in 3.9, time is running out. Any other announcements people would like to make? All right. So discussions. What do we have? I have one from myself. There was nothing at the time, so I jumped in early and I got the first spot. I hope you don't mind. I have a little PR for plugins and shell completion. Surprise, surprise. It's a one-line fix. I had coded it. There's a bug, a small bug that affects shell completion. I was just hoping one of the maintainers could have a look before we cut the RC. Should be relatively safe, but I'll let you judge for yourself. It's one line plus tests, so the tests make it longer. Next item, Joe. Problems with network configuration? Go ahead.
So there was a PR 108.30 that one of the things that it did, it bumped some dependency, but the other thing it did is it made build static binaries. Prior to that, it was not setting the CGO environment to 0. This has caused some issues for some downstream users that were getting their packages from, well, at least from Brew, because the Brew build uses the make target to build their binaries. So now on Macs, Macs have configuration files for DNS in weird places, and because Go doesn't look in those weird places, it breaks them. So is this a bug or is this a downstream packager problem?
That's a good question. I mean, the stuff we shipped from the Helm project always used a different make command, and that did it with CGO disabled, right? And so everything we've always shipped from our project did not include that because it was all on how you build it. And so I can understand the problem. This would come if you build it yourself, or if you're using something like Homebrew. So I can see where the concern would come in. I didn't realize that this was ever a problem because it's not the version. I don't have this. And I'm on OS X. Okay.
Maybe we could change the make file in a way that it only sets CGO to 0 if it's not already set. So you from the outside can explicitly override it. So that would maybe be a solution for then the Brew packagers to just
that would be a solution there, because in some environments the reason it was set to CGO was 0 is I was building it in a non-Mac environment, and I realized that CGO isn't set to 0, and that was actually causing me to have bugs. And that's how I realized we had stopped doing that, because I'm ultimately the one who made that change. And I'm like, okay, we're not consistent here. And in some environments, this is actually buggy if you have CGO enabled. So I can understand the issue here, and I am totally open to making it configurable. And the default is to disabled, but if somebody wants to enable it for a certain environment, that's what I would do there.
If enabling it exposes known bugs, is that doing a disservice?
it depends on the environment, right? Some environments it causes bugs in, and so that's why I would disable Seago by default. And then your people who want to custom build Helm themselves, right, or do it in Homebrew, which we don't deliver, we don't support there, then it becomes on them to go ahead and enable Seago and do it a different route. And they would have to deal with the platform that way. Right, because we actually don't manage Homebrew and what goes there. And so that would be upon other folks to deal with. At least that's my 2 cents. Does anybody else disagree or have a different idea?
I think that sounds reasonable, you know, because you're setting it by default for the good reasons. And if people want to do it differently, then they just enable it, and they're in control of their own environments and what they want to do. So they're explicitly saying, we want it enabled, we want to do it this way. And who are we to say you shouldn't do it that way then?
Did you want me to comment on the issue since I'm the one who babbled on about this?
Sure.
Okay.
You sound informed, Matt. Go for it.
Hey, I'm the one who made the change, so I might as well be the one who puts in the time here.
Hey,
This
if you fall on your sword, we'll pick you up, mate.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe, for bringing that up. So Mr. Farina will be following up. Next item, Martin, fuzzing. Apparently you guys had a great meeting.
Yeah, so I just want to give a status update. So fuzzing is still going on. Thanks for all the great work done so far by Adam and David and Matt and Scott. So I pulled together today the guys to see where we are and what we need to do. So we have a couple of issues on the table, and Matt, Scott and myself are going to look into them, and we're going to see if we can provide a solution or a fix, and or else we'll comment on it where it is. So once we work through them, the guys then from the CNCF fuzzing team, David and Adam, they'll update the report. We'll do a review again, and once we're okay to go, it'll be published. And yeah, we'll go from there. So in the meantime, I'll draft a blog to be ready for once the report is published to then basically announce we have fuzzing in Helm. So we don't have a timeline in it, but we should hopefully over the next few weeks get it there, depending on how we get on with the fixes and so forth. Any questions?
Great.
One other little thing is that we will follow on then once it's announced, and we'll have some work to do around eventually taking ownership of the fuzzing and so forth and bringing it into our project. But that's something we'll do post publication. So, but it will be something we look at. It'll become part of our CI, so that we'll have these tests running on the side to see if anything breaks as we go along, and then, you know, further down the line, it'll be looking then to maybe build on the test ourselves.
There's no infrastructure that the fuzzing project brings in or has access to that we wouldn't have access to?
No, we should have everything, but we'll work through with the CNCF fuzzing team when we go through that.
Of course. Okay. That sounds great. Thanks for the update. Any comments or questions on that one? All right, next item, Philippe. Unknown API version, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just something I noticed while working on our HIP. For fixing the backward compatibility, my first idea was that we need to bump the API version there, right, of the chart YAML, but that doesn't seem to be used anywhere in, like, or at least I guess if you put it to 1, it will behave differently, but if you put it to version 2 or version 100, it doesn't make a difference in how this is handled. And I guess that, to me, it sounds like a bug that should be like raise exit code 1, right? And just some error message on standard error. Yeah, and in future that would then make like such changes that we similar to what we proposed, but yeah, or that change the structure of the chart YAML would make such changes much easier because you can then just bump the version basically, right? And if you want to use that feature, you have to use the newest version of the API, and then yeah, older versions will just fail transparently, tell you, yeah, that's an unsupported API version of the chart YAML, and that's then pretty clear that you probably need to update your Helm version.
Yeah, sounds like a bug, Philippe. I'd say what we did there was when we were doing it was it checks probably for version 1 and does specific stuff. Otherwise, it assumes it's version 2. So yeah, yes, I think it would be pertinent to put it in there. No, it doesn't matter at this moment, you know, as such. But it's probably better than someone sticking anything at all in there if they want to. But it's more, I suppose, it's kind of a superficial issue, really. It's not going to cause any problems as such. But yeah, it doesn't. You know, it's good to have validation there.
I think that down the line, let's say we move to V3 and then somebody has mistakenly put, I don't know, V4, then who knows. So I guess I agree that it's better to have the safety check.
Yeah,
now
we'd probably fix it anyway when we go to, if it ever goes to V3, we'd probably put in the checks then. So do you know what I mean? You're always just kind of putting it forward, but you're just sort of putting validation for the earlier versions because they're the ones you're going to have to test on. And probably going forward anyway, if we go to V3, then eventually V1 becomes unsupported. So you're always just probably supporting, I don't know, maybe N-1, you know, versions of the chart version.
are we concerned about breaking existing charts that have this bug, or can we say your chart is invalid? And because there might be charts in the wild that have this problem, and then when they start being used with the new Helm that has this fix, then they won't work anymore. And it's not an easy fix for a user to.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is someone would have by accident probably made it a version. Yeah. Yes, it would break them if you put that in.
Are we comfortable with that? Because it's clearly, you know, we don't support the V3, V4, V76 or whatever they would put garbage in there. I'm just imagining the scenario where a user does a Helm install and it works, and then they upgrade to the next Helm and it doesn't work, and they, you know, they can't just, it's not easy to fix. They need a new release of the chart.
And they may not be the chart owner. The user may not be the chart owner. And that could ultimately be a problem because your chart producer, we'll use Bitnami as the example, can be entirely disconnected. And I know we didn't require this for a long time. I think it's required now. Is it required now? Like with linting and everything, do we point it out? I don't remember.
I think what it is, Matt, and I'm just going to go off the cuff here because I can't check it. I think if the version isn't put in, it's assumed to be V1.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's assumed to be V2.
Yeah. And that's really to support older charts or places where people didn't put the version in because early on they didn't have to.
Yes.
I wonder what this would do to break people today who are still using V1 charts. I would hope people have moved on from that. But before we make a change, in some ways that would break backwards compatibility. I'm more of the mind of I would wait till Helm V4 before we make that change, just in terms of backwards compatible breaking.
Yeah, and you could explicitly call it out because I know we can say people should have moved on, but I saw an issue the other day in the map 2 to 3 plugin that somebody wants to now move over to V3. So it's still going on in the background.
Yeah, maybe that could generate a warning at least, and that you're using some unsupported version. That should be pretty safe, right?
No, when you put a warning in, some people have that could break their CI/CD because they get the warning and they might have logic that says fail because some messages come up. We've seen that in the past. It sounds
yeah. If we don't have one, we should have a lint check on it as a start.
Yeah.
I just verified the linter that I put a V100 and the linter throws an error.
Okay.
Oh, does
So
it?
that's
Okay.
the linter, but I'm guessing. So I did a Helm template, doesn't complain, but the linter does. So that's already something.
Yeah.
Actually, it says the value must be either V1 or V2. Very helpful. It's good.
Yeah, but we can't assume people use the linter either. So
You're right.
There's bound to be charts out there that are just written and deployed.
So
Yeah.
I guess Matt's suggestion is V4 is the best. We open the issue, slate it for V4, and
Yeah, because we're allowed to break there.
We don't want to break people. I mean, we bend over backwards not to break people because we realize they use it in production. They use it in a variety of ways we don't imagine. And so we really we don't want to break people if in a change, unless there's a darn good reason.
all right. So I think, Philip, is that okay? Everybody's in
Yeah.
agreement?
Yeah, it's fine for me.
Thank you for
just
bringing it up.
I can create an issue later or tomorrow, probably.
Thank you very much. Hello, Dr. Butcher. Next item, Mr. Farina, OCI.
Yeah, so OCI, one of the things that some folks approached me about was when the OCI work was as an experiment, you could specify a hash and use that and to get your chart, right? And we went for explicit semantic versioning when we pushed it over to final releasing. So everything works with everything else in version ranges and updates and all this stuff. And some people were using the hash explicitly for security purposes to make sure they got the exact same hash of the thing out of OCI that they put in, because they could all around track that hash and move it, which I totally understand. And they were asking about it coming back. And so we've been discussing some ideas on ways to bring that back. And so I wanted some feedback from the group here on different things. And so some of the ideas include, in addition to allowing for semantic version or semantic version range, you could take a hash and you could start it with SHA-256 : and then the hash. And we could actually look for that SHA-256. And if we see that, then, and it's not for OCI, we error out. If it's for, we're going to go do version range support, we could just skip it if we see that first and it's OCI. And then we could just go get that, because we know it's always just pinned to it. And so we could work on it. Another option would be, and you'd pass that in as the version, so the API and everything wouldn't have to change. It would just be a new value starting there. Another option would be Docker supports, you put tag at hash, and we could start allowing that. Some of our regexes would have to become a little bit smarter in order to handle that at symbol in there. But it's one of those things where we could kind of go do the same thing. We could reject the whole idea altogether and say, no, you just have to use semantic version, although it's mutable. And so people are going to complain about it. What do folks think about the different ideas? Technically, all of these things are implementable. It's a matter of what's going to be our policy, what's the user experience going to be like. So I'm curious what folks think.
Can't speak to the implementation, but I like the idea of allowing them to get a immutable version. I think that's a valid. I think it's a valid request.
But isn't that already supported with the chart log file?
That will deal with your dependencies, but say you did something like Helm install and you said OCI : / that's not going to be supported there, right?
Yeah,
or
okay.
Helm pull.
Yeah. All right, makes sense.
I'm trying to look it up, but is at a legal character and build metadata? Is there any case that we would add ambiguity with the semver parsing by needing that? Okay.
No. I'll double check, but if I remember right, it's not an allowed character.
I think I've expressed this already, but my feeling is I wouldn't want to support the tag at hash notation, even though Docker uses it, because tag does not work the same for Helm, and version ranges are supported in there. And I think it would deliver a very confusing message to people that they would be allowed to combine semver queries and SHAs, even though they would not, right? It would only be SHA. And I'm concerned that we're making it more complex than it needs to be. And since version strings always start with V, and SHAs would always start with SHA 256, we would have a nice, easy top level pattern to match on versus making the semver thing both difficult regex wise and unclear to the user what to expect if you did like hat 2.0 at and then a SHA, or hat caret 2.0 and then a SHA, where one user might say, it should always deliver me just the SHA thing. Another user might say, well, it should error out if it matches the SHA, but it doesn't match the semver pattern or something like that. And I think we would end up with some ambiguity there that could cause uncertainty and controversy in the community. So I would be in favor of adding it, and in favor of adding it as an alternative to a semver.
Think that good for you, Matt? Farina?
It's good for me. I can pass it on to folks, and if I find time, I might even code it, but that would be a little bit off. We'll see.
Bonus.
There's a couple other things going on. All right.
We only heard you're going to code it. That's all any of us heard.
Actually, some folks over at the company who asked for it already started a pull request, and then there was some discussion and some debate on it, which is what's held it up and why I'm asking. So there's actually external folks who started, although somebody said he's busy for a little bit and he couldn't come back around. So I'll provide some feedback because it won't go into 3.9. That's not enough time, but 3.10 would be a possibility. And so I will pass all that feedback on.
I'd be my only thing on this is, and kind of what Butcher said there is it going to add confusion by putting it in there because we want the format to be similar to Docker?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't. I would just do the hash only. And then you can do a simple match. Does it start SHA 256 : and if it does, you assume it's a hash and you skip the semantic version handling and you make sure it's on OCI only. And if it's not on OCI, you can provide a nice message. And if it's on OCI, then you try that instead of a tag.
Yeah, because I need to go back and look at it, but I know I wrote the docs for the IBM container service around this. Just when the capability put out, I just took it and said, see, would it work on it? And I thought it was okay to explain, here's the version, it's Helm version, charts, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You know I wrote, yeah, you can't do such and such, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I can go back and look as well and give you some feedback as well, what I think,
Okay.
But sometimes people, when they get, I suppose they're too immersed in the Docker world and the way containers are done, then you feel everything should be that way then afterwards, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. And
okay. I'm gonna have to cut it short. We're
sorry.
Since for a while now we haven't gone over time, and now we're about to. So you guys, I guess, could continue offline. Sorry about that. I hate doing that. Before we move on to the next item, real quick, moderator notes and issue triage for next week, please. You could put it in the chat as we continue. David, you wanted to bring attention to an issue opened by Alan about throttling.
Yeah, and then there's an implementation already by another developer. That developer happens to be in PTO, so he asked me to bring attention. He's gone through a review cycle with one of the reviewers. but with he needs some attention from a core maintainer.
So
And
you
this
put
is
it
an
in
issue that.
I
This
was
is an
going to
issue
say,
that-
you put in the issue. Is there? You said there's a PR.
Yeah, it's already appear in the issue as well. It's linked in
Okay,
the.
so it's linked in the
so-
issue. Thank you.
Yeah. So just want to bring attention. I know this is one thing that we agree on a call that was a good feature to add. That's just it's there now. We just need to make sure that is correct. Yeah.
Bye to Martin. Okay, thank you, David, for bringing that
No
up.
problem.
If there's no movement, feel free to bring it up again and again
Sure.
and again.
Sure. Sure.
Last item on the list, we have 2 minutes. Helm, I don't know if sorry if I pronounce your name badly. Helm survey of some sort.
You're very close. It's Jayla. But I just wanted to put in the link that I think Aaron had gotten going a week or two before for the Helm user feedback survey. I just added in some questions. If anyone can take a look and give feedback. I think it is a little long, so that's something we might want to think about. What questions to keep, what questions to remove, but I just wanted to let everyone know.
Thank you for that. Real quick, is that I've never seen that before. Is it something we do regularly or?
No, so I think the idea was that we can conduct a feedback survey. We can launch it on KubeCon and then have it open or host it on CNCF website for a month or so and promote it in the CNCF Slack channel
Nice.
just to get feedback from the users about how can we best support them, how are they using Helm, and what can we do better essentially. So
That's great. Thank you for the clarification. All right. Sorry, I'm stressed when we're running out of time. So if there's nothing else, if there is something else, put it in the notes for next week, and then it'll be a pleasure to discuss it then. Thank you for coming, everyone. It was a pleasure as usual, and you have a good rest of the week.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.